I work in real estate. Why not just try to do my best to get all of the content I can from just all the stuff I'm doing already?
Welcome, everyone, to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals from across the country, brought to you by Windowsill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I am sitting down with broker and owner of the home company, Yaz Abdullatif. How you doing, Yaz?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good. It feels good to be back.
Thank you for taking the time. So, you have done a lot in this real estate career. You are operating in the kind of Metro Detroit, Southeast Michigan area, and you are the self-proclaimed home and restaurant matchmaker. Do we want to start there?
Yeah. That title kind of just like came out of nowhere because I don't really like it wasn't something I was like, I have to become this like specific person. It was more so like I go to restaurants on a regular basis, and it started to become a thing where people were always like, Yaz knows where we need to go eat. Like she knows where we need to go. So it was always like, hey Yaz, like what can you recommend in this city? What can you recommend in this city? So like I just got used to giving out recommendations on like new restaurants and just kind of like new places to hit in different areas. At the time I was living in Detroit, so I was like very, very big on just the food scene that was happening down there and the like kind of the revival, I guess. So I was like any new place that was opening, I was like, I have to be there day one. So it eventually turned into a thing where I just kind of like made it my brand. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start taking videos of this because I've always believed like if you want to do anything marketing and content related, it really should be like your day in and day out. It should be what you do every single day. So you're not like grasping to make something else out of yourself and like burning out, because that's essentially like what can happen. So I was like, well, I mean, I work in real estate. I hang out with Cookie Monster and, you know, my family, and then like I'm eating. So like why not just try to do my best to get all of the content I can from just all the stuff I'm doing already. And it was really awkward going into like my first restaurant and taking a video because I didn't want to be like one of those girls, you know, but that's kind of who I am now. It's always, you know, what's the saying? It's your food eats, or no, Instagram eats or something before you eat. I don't know what the saying is, but there's like some sort of saying there. So it's always like, yeah, Instagram first, we get all the pictures, get all the videos, and then we put them up. And yeah, it's done. I've definitely seen like so much more momentum now. There's so much consistency with it too. I think I have like at least a restaurant or two or three that I post every week. So I definitely have gained, you know, some sort of a following from it, and I have a lot of conversations about it. And a lot of those conversations usually end up turning into real estate conversations. And people follow me for the walkthroughs that I do, because I do walkthroughs through showings. And then I also do like walkthroughs of listings. And then, yeah, I do the food. So everybody's kind of like, yeah, what's new, what's out here? And it just kind of became my thing. So self-proclaimed, it's here.
Yeah, and you're following through. And I'm sure I've probably seen some of your videos. My mother-in-law and I, like, we send them back and forth all the time of like places to try in Detroit, and people love them. And yeah, like you said, it's a great way to drive people to you and then kind of open up a more business conversation as it arises.
Yeah, definitely. And that's essentially like what it is, because people will follow me for some of the like some of the food content, but then those are people that I'm usually reaching out to anyway and having conversations with, because, you know, if someone's following me or if someone's sharing some of my posts, like I'm always making sure to do some sort of a follow-up with them. I'm either thanking them for sharing my post and asking them if they have any, you know, different places that they prefer or that they recommend. If people are following me, like I'm usually reaching out and saying, you know, thank you for the follow. Like, let me know if there's anything that you need. So I'm doing my best to kind of just like plant the seed that, you know, I am available and I'm open to communication. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
That's
Definitely,
great.
definitely nice.
And you kind of mentioned that there can be a burnout aspect with social media. I do think a lot of people, especially in the real estate business, can like let out a big heavy sigh when social media comes up. And I think what you've done so beautifully is you've found something you would be talking about anyway and made that part of your regular content. And then it is easy for you in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. So when I first started doing social media, it was so daunting. Like it was the last thing I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I have to get up and like brush my hair today and like, put on some makeup and like actually get out and like put my face on camera. And I was just like, I don't even want to talk about these things, or I don't even want to like highlight some of these things. And it just became something that I was like forcing myself to do. But once I was like, you know what, these are the things that I'm doing day in and day out, and people are already asking me about a lot of these things that I'm doing day in and day out. Like, people are already like, where are you going to eat? Like, what's the new place that's opening? You're really familiar with this area. Like, what's happening over here? So I was just like, well, I'm already checking those boxes off every day, because the next time a new restaurant opens, I'm either hearing word like from the restaurant now, or I'm hearing word from like someone who's forwarding something to me, like another foodie. And now I'm just like, okay, I have to get on the list and I'm there. So like, I should just make that part of my regular, social media content. And now it's got to a place where it's just so nice for me, because like I'm already doing these things. These are already things that I'm doing with friends, family, and now I can just go out and do it. And the food thing has actually opened up like my ability to connect with people as well. Like, I have so many like real estate agents, or like even clients who have been like, hey, we actually saw some of your like your food content, like we would love to go out and grab dinner with you, like once we get to this closing, or once we like before we get to this listing appointment, like instead of like having a traditional listing appointment, like I've been actually able to meet and have like lunch or dinner at like a new spot with someone to connect on what their motivation is for selling and buying, but also connect in my realm of things, which is like eating usually really good food. So, and I've been able to like really branch out with like connections with real estate agents too, because I have so many real estate agents that I don't even know who have just started to follow me and actually have started to they've started to send me like different places to eat. Like, there's a realtor in Ann Arbor that like I don't normally even, hang out with. I think we were just kind of like Instagram friends, and she was like, there's this new place opening in Ann Arbor, like we have to go. And I was like, cool. So like, we've just kind of created a friendship from there. So it's been nice. It's been nice for connections, and it's been nice and organic just to have like be able to do like what I'm doing day in and day out, and not really have to go, out of my comfort zone for social media, because it can be really daunting and really frustrating. And the ultimate thing is it's become a form of lead gen. So the fact that I have people following me for the food content, or the fact that I have people following me to go through, some of the showings and walkthroughs that I have, that's leading more people to me. And I'm getting, more and more people in my DMs who are saying like, hey, I'm thinking about buying, I'm thinking about selling, and I love your content. So yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of different things. I don't know if you're like continuing to do them all. I've seen you do like street interview style videos. You've done kind of more like neighborhood tours in addition to your home walkthroughs, and it's cool to see you doing these different things. Are they experiments? Like, are, some things staying, some things going?
So the street interviews were probably they probably were the most popular, but they were my least favorite, because you have no idea how many people do not want to be interviewed, like in public, just walking around. Like, there were so many times where like we saw like in those videos we saw like maybe 5 or 6 people get interviewed, but that was after asking like 50 people, just because like like I was always very upfront, and I would just say, hey, I'm a real estate agent in the area. I'd love to ask you a few questions about what your favorite places are in the area. And, as soon as people saw the camera behind me, like as soon as they would see the camera behind me, they were like, no. So yeah, it can be a little bit difficult. I do know that like the people who do street interviews are kind of just like spontaneous with it. I think they just kind of come up to people and put them on the spot. And I haven't reached that level of, I guess, I don't know what the word is. I haven't reached that level of just full transparency, I guess, in my world of like, hey, just answer my questions right now. You're going to be on camera. I think I've been more polite about it. So that was also the last summer. So I think I might pick that back up this summer. I know I hit Royal Oak. I might hit Royal Oak again, because that's where I live. So I might hit Royal Oak again. I'm definitely probably going to branch into like Birmingham, Berkeley, Clawson, just because, the food scene is kind of like expanding everywhere. And yeah, just kind of see like where everybody's like, favorite spots are. So the interviews are fun. The neighborhood like videos are definitely going to come back too. Those are those are ridiculously like easy for me. It's just a matter of like remembering to like stick my camera out my car window and like just get a quick pan over of like the neighborhood that I'm in. So yeah, I'll definitely be bringing those back because those were actually really popular on YouTube. I think people really love seeing just some of their own neighborhoods, glamorized on YouTube because like those neighborhoods deserved it too. So yeah, that was yeah, so that might be something that I bring back, but it kind of all falls into that same realm of like anything that I can do to just show like my day to day in. Like when I was doing those neighborhood like videos of like my phone kind of out the window, that was just me showing houses in those neighborhoods. So it was really easy for me to just, point my phone out the window, and just get a quick sweep of, the block that I was going down and then just talking about it just because, I was so like, I know those neighborhoods so well. So it was just so easy to just be like, hey, fun facts, and people love those facts. So they're fun.
I'd like to take just a moment and tell you about our sponsor. Windowstill provides premium real estate media for agents, builders, and property management companies nationwide. To learn more, visit windowstill.com. Windowstill, helping America find their next chapter. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, and I think it's great to have like this kind of variety because it shows different aspects of your personality. It shows that you are like anybody else out there on the internet. I think people kind of can get wrapped up in this idea of like an internet persona or like being a certain brand, and I think you showing all these different sides of yourself really comes across as very authentic.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's been a little bit of a ride on social media, just trying to figure out like what I want to do versus like what I really just should be doing instead of like kind of like all the things that I keep hearing, because like you get on social media and you like are trying to really figure out like what works and what sticks. And like I sit down with real estate agents now, like, I had a conversation last week with a realtor who was like, hey, your social media has like really seen, a massive following. Like I want to get behind that and I want to do food, reviews too. And I was like, well, do you do that normally? Is that like a normal part of like your day to day anyway? And they were like, no, not really. And I was like, well, then what do you do? Because that's what we want to focus on, because the last thing you want to do is start to hit up, restaurants, if that's like something that you want to, jump on. And it's not really something that you even do regularly. Like one, it can get pretty expensive. You're going to restaurants 2 to 3 times a week and, the bills for food are not really cheap anymore. So there's that. And then 2, if that's not something that you do day in and day out, like why is that something that you want to burn yourself out with? So like the goal is to always remember like, what am I doing day in and day out that I can just bring to, like I can bring a camera to and just, get a quick glimpse of. Like a lot of us are realtors who show homes. So why not show like, hey, come show these 5 houses with me. People love to see what happens in a showing. I have buyers all the time who are like, what do I wear? Like his simple questions like, am I supposed to get dressed up for showings? Like, what shoes do I need to wear? Like, how many people can I bring? What can I say during a showing? Like, who's going to be at the showing? Like, what happens at a showing? Like, there are so many simple questions, or like what we think would be easy questions, that come to us. But, these are brand new buyers who are just walking through houses. So if you're already showing homes day in and day out, go do a quick tour of what it looks like to show 5 houses. What it looks like to walk through one, so that people can get like kind of that real time look at like what they can expect when they start to go look at houses too. So when someone comes to your social media page, they can be like, okay, cool. So this is what it's going to look like to go show houses with Kat. When I go see 5 houses, like I'll completely understand like what I'm getting into with her, and every agent has a different showing style. So it would be cool to just show like what kind of style you have too. So there's definitely like, different things.
Oh yeah, I think that's great advice. And in addition to all these other things we've said you do on social media, you do sometimes do, the tips and the advice. And there was one video I saw you posted, I think it was fairly recently, about showings and how you shouldn't maybe talk too negatively during a showing because the sellers might have a home security system and they could kind of hear the things you're saying. Can you talk about that? Because that fascinated me.
Yeah, so that's actually personal experience. When I put my house up, my first house up for sale, I've always had cameras inside my home just because I'm trying to make sure Cookie Monster is safe when I leave him at home. And that's just like a helicopter mom thing. But I've always had cameras in my house. So, and the cameras are out in the open, they're not hidden. And, as a realtor, we always have to make sure that the listing also says that there is audio and video recording at all times. So that was also noted in the listing. But for whatever reason, when this buyer walked into my house with their realtor, they negotiated their offer on my home right in front of the camera. And like right in front of it, like it was out in the open, my camera was sitting right there, and they were like, hey, we want to come in at X, and initially, and if they're not okay with that, then we'll go up to this number. And so I heard that entire negotiation. So when they sent me the offer, I countered immediately at the second offer that they said they were open to going up at. So I took that experience, and I always make sure to tell all my clients now, like, hey, when we walk in, like, we can't say a word. So if you're feeling a certain way about an offer, if you're feeling a certain way about the home, if it isn't positive, if it's not going to flatter the home, it's just something that we need to leave until we get out of the door. And even past the door, because there are Ring doorbells now. So like we need to make sure we're like away from the home completely before we start to talk about, just really anything that's going on with the house. So and it's crazy how sometimes like how quickly people forget, like you'll walk into a home and it immediately doesn't smell good. And your first instinct is like, oh my God, like, why does it smell like this? And I'm always just like, no, don't. Like, don't say it. Like, don't say a single word. Cause like, people are so attached to their homes. I've heard a statistic once that said, selling or moving is either the second or third hardest thing after like death and divorce. And I forgot exactly what it was, but it's definitely after like one or two of those things. And, to think that someone is parting with their house and then they're hearing you come into their home and say something negative. It could be the simplest thing. You could say maybe you don't like the color of their walls. Maybe they painted the color of their walls that color because of a memory or because of something they did with their family. And if you come in and you say something negative, they could easily be like, well, that person who wrote that offer on my house had something negative to say about my home and I don't even want them living there anymore. Just because people get so emotional about these things. So the last thing we want is for anyone to just say anything negative while they're inside a home or talk about offers. That's always the big one too. Just because we definitely don't want to put, we don't want to show all our cards. And the last thing we want to do is just do it outward on a camera because it can be a pretty fortunate situation for the listing agent. So we don't ever want to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense when you explain it all like that. But yeah, to your point, how quickly you forget or you were just off the cuff, but it can obviously work against you in the same way that like when people write like a buyer's letter that works for you, right? You're playing on the emotions, but in this case, like not in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there are a couple different like showing strategies and showing tactics. So I love when I have a new client and they ask me some of those questions. Like, I just recently had a client who did ask me like, do we need to be dressed up? When we go to showings, like, is there a certain form of attire? And I always say, like, in my buyer consultation, like, you want to be as comfortable as possible. You want to have shoes that slip on and slip off. So I love when I get those questions. And, sellers have, similar questions too, where they say, like, when are people going to walk into my home? Like, are they going to be turning off the lights? Are they going to be leaving things open? And, sometimes they're like, what if I can't show the house? What do I do? And I'm just like, you just say no. You just say no, you propose a new time. So, yeah, it's always nice to be able to get in front of all those questions like earlier on. So, bringing it back to social media, if that's something like it's something we're aware of because they're conversations we're having. So if it's something you want to just get in front of, on social media, why not? I recently posted a video where I walked through a home and I said, you should be looking under rugs and you should be looking under plants. And, you should be looking under anything that is directly tied to the floor because you never know what's under it. And I think that video got the most engagement that I had on YouTube because people were like, oh yeah, I bought a house and like when the seller moved out, like everything was moved out and the stuff that was going on under the rug was crazy. And So yeah, like my clients know when I'm walking into homes, I'm lifting up rugs. My sellers also know when I'm going to do a listing appointment, if I see rugs or if I see plants, I'm moving them out of the way just because I want to get out of the way of what could potentially happen when they go to move and there's something under them. So so yeah, they're just like really simple things that you don't really that yeah, you just don't really remember or think about until like something happens to you. And pretty much everything that comes out of my like calls and interactions with my clients is from a personal experience that has happened to me. I've had situations where we moved into a home and lifted up the rug during the final walkthrough and found like massive amounts of like water stains. So you just want to be really mindful of them.
That is also great advice. And I saw that video and I saw the comments, and one person was even like, "Oh, I once looked at a house and under the rug on the deck or something like that. There was like a big hole in the deck they were covering
Yeah,
with the rug and furniture." And
yeah,
I was
and
like,
that's
"Oh,
wild. Like a
people."
whole hole. Like, come on. Like that's insane. So yeah, it happens. It's yeah, it's kind of crazy like what you can find at houses. And sometimes like people think like the seller might do things on purpose. Like maybe the hole in the deck situation was on purpose because that seems a little weird. But sometimes like an inspector will go into an attic and they'll find like a ton of mold. And I'm like, when's the last time you were in your attic? Like, I bought my house 3 years ago. I haven't been in my attic in the last 3 years. I don't know what's going on up there. A squirrel could have like created a whole family up there. Like, I don't know, and I wouldn't know, because I don't normally just get up there. So typically, when we do the inspection and we come back, we're kind of almost telling the seller like, hey, these are things that we found that you've been essentially living with. So usually a good seller will say like, hey, like, I didn't even know that was happening, so I have no problem getting those things repaired or fixed. So yeah, there's people who don't know about things and they're just like kind of like shocked by it, and they want to make sure that the buyer is going into a good home and they want to have that good faith. But then there are people who just kind of want to wash their hands with it. So sometimes those things can be new. And that's always something, I help buyers understand too, because I think, tying it back to the emotions, like buyers are like, sometimes they think like, sellers are out to get them, or sellers think that buyers are out to get them because they're asking for all these things. But they're really like new things that no one has really even thought about or even knew about. So the goal is to just kind of get both parties to a place where, we can help them kind of bridge the gap of like the emotions and just get to like that original goal of getting into this home and getting the home sold.
So, Yaz, you've been in real estate for quite a while, and I'm curious what made you want to work in real estate?
So I actually graduated high school and started at Wayne State with the goal of getting into law school. And every time I tell people that, they're like, "What?" Just because like that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into law school. I wanted to put bad people away. Like that was essentially like where I was going with it. And then I ended up getting my first job out of high school because, like, I think I worked at McDonald's in high school. But my first job out of high school, I got at a real estate brokerage. A friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm leaving this brokerage. I'm going into nursing school and I need someone to come in and be like the admin." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll be like, I think receptionist at the time. I don't think we say that anymore though." But I was like, "Okay, I'll come in and I'll answer some phone calls, whatever." So I got the job at the real estate brokerage, and I'm going to age myself because minimum wage at the time was, I think it was like $5.50 or something like really wild like that. And they were like, "We're going to pay you like $10 an hour." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm rich." Like that's so much money right now. So I started the job at the office, and simultaneously I was going to Wayne State for like a lot of, just the general requirements to get into what I was hoping would be law school. But over time, the office just kind of like, it was just kind of like something that became, something I really, really enjoyed. Like I wasn't a real estate agent at the time, but just seeing all the ins and outs of like, just helping people sell, helping people buy. It just kind of was something that I felt would be really rewarding. And it just honestly looked like fun because I had, everybody loves real estate. Everybody loves HGTV. Everybody loves scrolling through Zillow. Like, it's just something we like to do. Like, even if you love your home and you never want to move out of your home, and like, you have a whole life inside your house, like you'll still look at another cool house. Like I recently saw someone post this castle in Rochester, and like I don't want
Yes.
to move. Yeah, you probably saw it. I don't want to move. I have
Hmm.
no plans of moving. I don't want to live in Rochester, but I was like, can I set up a showing to go see this castle? I just want to look at it, like, and I did. I asked the realtor, I'm like, can I just come see this? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But yeah, like, like that's just kind of something that people do. So I just got really kind of like thrown into the world of it, and it just became something that I was like really, really enticed by. So I ended up kind of dropping the whole law school thing. I got my license, and I never really wavered off of that. And then eventually, I started my own brokerage, and here we are with the home company. So, and the home company was, after kind of seeing how different brokerages operate and just kind of doing some research and some homework, I just kind of decided like I just wanted to build like more of a boutique brokerage that was really focused on people and not so much focused on like numbers and units and volume, because I think so many brokerages like are so focused and like so like hell bent on like just bringing as much volume in, bringing as many units as needed. And I just kind of wanted to humble that for myself. I just, I've always been just like really happy with just like what I've been able to bring to the table, and I've been very fortunate with that. And I was just like, why not just build something smaller and build a place where I get to kind of cherry pick who gets to work with me, and create like a culture that I really want to be around and that I'm really proud of, and just kind of go from there. So that's essentially what happened with the home company. And when I was even thinking of the name, I was like, okay, let me pick a name. Like, let's try and find something that's just going to make sense for my brokerage. I almost named it after my dog, Cookie Monster, but I was like, I don't know if people would really understand like what I'm trying to do with that. So I didn't. And eventually I was like banging my head against the wall trying to find a name, and I was like, why am I complicating this? Like, it's a company with houses. We're going to sell houses. We're going to help people buy houses. So I was like, it's the home company, and it just stuck, and it was really easy, and it just feels so versatile too. If I wanted to, change anything about the company, it can kind of go any other way. And then eventually, I didn't necessarily like I wasn't necessarily like trying to open the door to essentially growing or like making it into a bigger brokerage. I was just kind of like, let me just kind of go off on my own and see what happens. And then eventually, like, I started getting knocks on the door, and people were like, hey, we kind of heard you went off on your own. Like, we trust you, we respect you, like, we want to come work with you. And honestly, it was like really humbling and really flattering. And I don't really know if I was even like expecting that, but that's what essentially ended up happening. So I ended up changing courses like very quickly, and I went from like just kind of operationally like maintaining my own brand to like, okay, what's this going to look like if I bring on people and start to onboard realtors? So that's essentially what happened. So I turned things around, and I ended up onboarding 7 realtors so far. Our 7 realtors are kind of all over the place. It's like a really nice, fun, mixed bag. We're in Brighton, we're in South Lyon, we're in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, we're downriver, we're in Westland, Garden City, we're over here on the east side, Royal Oak, like, out in Macomb, like we're handling like just pretty much every area of like what feels like Metro Detroit. So it's really nice, and it's a great group, and I'm like really, really excited about it, just because everybody wants to do their best for themselves, and like that should be the ultimate goal. I want to work somewhere where someone is going to invest in me, and someone is going to care enough about me to see, what I'm capable of. But at the same time, like, I am my own person. This is my business. Like, I own this for myself, and I'm going to do everything that I can to just help build and grow and do everything I can for myself with the support of, this awesome and amazing culture and team. And that's essentially what we have, and it's been awesome. So it's been new. So like my first realtor came over in January, and we've grown a little bit since, and, we'll just kind of see where it goes. But so far it's been really fun, and I'm really, really excited about it. And it's taken off. It's taken from a lot of just the pressure of like sell to getting back to like what we all really love to do, which is, helping people who trust us and respect us. And, we all have different tiers as to how much we want to sell, how little we want to sell, and that's okay. So it's nice.
That's really cool. And yeah, you have a great group with you. I loved looking at everybody on your site. Uh, so you've shared with us a lot of lessons you've learned along the way, which I think has been such great advice. Has there been anything about working in real estate that has really like surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise in real estate has been like the industry as a whole. It's been like I think when you think about being a real estate agent, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go out and like do my own thing and it's gonna be fine because I'm not gonna have to deal with like anything, like you hear office drama and stuff like that, right? And the politics of that. So you kind of go into real estate thinking the same thing. But I think the most surprising thing has been like our industry has been similar. There are like when it comes to realtors, like working solo, like you really do have to work together. If you burn a bridge with a real estate agent, that real estate agent might make it really hard for you to get an offer accepted or even show a property of theirs. So there is a little bit of like drama and politics that is still involved. So I think that's probably been the most surprising thing to me because you kind of want to bring it back down to like the ethics and the integrity of like what we should be doing as real estate agents and how we should be, presenting offers. And I'm not saying that realtors aren't presenting offers, but I do feel like there is probably a little tiny bit of some of the cattiness and some of the drama that comes with just working in any office corporate world. It's here with us too. And I thought for a long time that it didn't pertain to us just because we're all independent contractors, but it's small. It's a small world. It's a small town. Like every realtor knows pretty much every realtor. So yeah, you just do your best as a real estate agent to make sure, that there aren't any bridges being burned and, there aren't any reputational issues happening so that you can get offers accepted. And that's probably been the most surprising to me is just kind of like the politics and drama within like our industry as real estate agents. But I guess when you really boil it down, it isn't very surprising just because like we're all in a world where, we all have coworkers and that's essentially like what we have. And yeah, it just is what it is. It's the same. So it's the same.
Wow, we're really getting to the good part, and I can't wait for you to hear what comes next. But first, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to make sure you are following and subscribe to the Closing Table podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts. Also, please leave us a comment or review. It is the best no-cost thing you can do for the podcast, and it helps us grow and find more awesome listeners like you. Now back to the episode. Yeah, I think it always comes back to right that notion is like you have like that one person you confide all the drama in, and then you like leave it with that person. And then you go out and operate in the world professionally, right?
Right. Exactly. So it's the same. It's the same thing. And, it's what I always tell like new real estate agents. They're always like, like, what can I expect? Am I going to be able to just go off and do my own thing? And it's going to be like, this beautiful like freedom of a world and, all that jazz. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, you definitely have way more freedoms than a 9-to-5. That's for sure. But as far as maintaining your brand, maintaining your reputation, it's a lot more public now. So you really want to make sure that everything you do kind of stems from that. Like you want to make sure that the way that you're presenting yourself to, potential clients, to other real estate agents in the industry, like you almost want to make sure that you're a little more aware of just what that looks like. And I mean, you can be authentically you. It doesn't mean you have to take away from who you are. It just means that, you just want to make sure that you're treating people the same way you want to be treated. So as long as you're going in with that notion every single time, like you'll be fine unless you treat yourself like crap. But, as long as you don't, you'll be okay. But yeah, I mean, I love the circle of realtors that I'm surrounded by. Like, all of my best friends are realtors. It's weird now, but that's just how it is, where it is. Like, I have like, I have a girl gang, I have a boy gang. Like I love all of them. And, I love being able to connect with realtors. Like I love the happy hours that we go to. I actually have one today. I love connecting with realtors. I love kind of like bouncing stuff off the wall and kind of seeing what sticks, what doesn't stick. I'm a real estate broker, so I get to connect with other real estate brokers. I met with one yesterday and, we just grabbed coffee and he talked about his brokerage and I talked about mine. And it's nice. It's nice when you have like a very nice collaborative community of people that, you can confide in and you can communicate with because, just because you own a brokerage and I own a brokerage doesn't mean like you have the recipe of like what we should be doing, and doesn't mean I have it either. So it's really nice when people want to connect and open up and hear about like what everybody's doing, just because like, you might be doing something different than I might be doing, and I take to social media every day and I ask different questions of, different referrals and different recommendations. Like, for example, today I have a real estate agent who is having trouble getting a sign installed in Dexter because the sign company that we use in Metro Detroit doesn't go that far out. So I immediately reached out to a couple Ann Arbor realtors that I knew, and I said, hey, who do you use in the real estate realm for signs? Who can I call to get this sign installed out there so that we're not paying this insane like upcharge? So it's nice. It's nice to have a community, even people who aren't in your brokerage, that you can just like bounce ideas off and get information from, because I feel like this like newer generation of realtors has become like so much more collaborative than it was 10 years ago when I was like that office assistant and I was watching realtors kind of like tear each other up because they were also focused on like different territories. It's just not the same anymore.
Right. And I think it works towards what you were saying earlier. It's like if you're collaborating with someone, even outside your brokerage, like maybe you haven't done a deal together yet where one's, buying, the other selling, but you might someday, and, they'll remember when you helped them out find a restaurant and they helped you find, a place where you can, get the sign installed. Right? Those types of things, you might not see the payoff right away, but just being a good person pays off in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely does. Like, and people remember, how you treat them, and people remember like, how you responded to something. And, I ended up, I was looking for an office for my brokerage, and I went and I showed it with another realtor recently. And, he remembered something 4 years ago, and he was like, yeah, I remember, this person did this like 4 years ago. So like, they're not really my favorite person anymore. And I'm just like, yeah, that's just how it is. Like, you make a first impression, you rub people the wrong way. Like, as real estate agents, like, we like to keep people that we feel do good work pretty close. And, the people that we maybe don't feel like do all of the same work, or maybe, don't want to, or maybe don't have, the best interest for our clients. Those are people that, we remember, we kind of make a note of. And, like I said, it's like a small town, it's a small world. Like, everybody kind of knows everybody. You start to learn like, who's really doing this for clients and who's doing this for money, which has essentially brought us to the situation of, what we're in right now with this NAR settlement. It's, it's bringing us to a place of, are realtors here for good reason, or are they just here to make money? So that's what it comes down to. So, if you can't help a buyer or seller understand like what value you're going to be bringing to the table, and how much you truly care about their investment as much as they care about it, then, what good are you really doing for them? So I think a lot of people are afraid because they're probably like, crap, people have just kind of known that they need to work with me. But now it's like, I need to really help people explain, like, or help people understand, like, I truly do care about your investment. We can do that, then we'll be okay. So I think that's like really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I think, kind of even circling back to the beginning, that's why it's important to at least have a little something about you out there on social media, even if it's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It'd be like, this is why I got into real estate. I care about finding you your dream home. Sure, other realtors have said it, but have you said it, and have people heard you say it?
Right, exactly. So I mean, there's a lot of like value that you can bring to the table when you're talking to a seller or a buyer about wanting to work with you, like even getting down to like some of the simplest things that we mentioned like earlier, like even mentioning the fact that like, hey, I know you've never been through a showing, so here's what you can expect. Like when you can get to a place where you're being even relatable with clients on talking to them, like here's what your first experience is going to be like they're really going to appreciate all of those expectations, like they're really going to understand like, okay, Kat does work with first time buyers. Like she does understand what we're going through. She's answering these questions before we can even ask them because, she's been here long enough to understand that these are issues that we have, or these are questions that we have. So, even narrowing it down to something as simple as that, and even narrowing it down to something like, hey, like these are the things that you can expect as a first time buyer, but also like I'm also going to be here for you contractually through negotiations and through, trying to make sure that you're not paying over what you should be paying on this home. So just making sure that you have someone like on your team, on your side is essentially like what we always need to make sure that we're pushing with our clients, because, so much, like so many times buyers or sellers feel like we're just trying to get to the closing table because we want to get paid. And although I'm not going to say that's not true, because that is when we get paid, typically the majority of us don't want buyers or sellers, closing on homes or selling homes if we're going to put them in a situation where they're going to be worse off. Anytime we know that, at least for me, like anytime I know that maybe a buyer has gone through an inspection and this inspection showed us maybe way more than my buyer is probably comfortable with, that's when we're going to say like, hey, maybe we need to sit this one out. Instead of like pushing that buyer to like feel uncomfortable and potentially like what they could be getting themselves into. So yeah, there's different things that like a lot of us can really say. And I would hope that, buyers and sellers are doing a lot of, I would hope that they would be kind of like on top of just what they should be asking real estate agents when it comes to just what their goals and needs are, so that they can really feel good about who they're hiring. And I think that's essentially like what it comes down to, just making sure that they're asking the right questions, just making sure that, they're finding someone who is good about potentially like being on their side. And there's nothing wrong with going out and asking for like referrals, like if you're interviewing a listing agent or if you're interviewing a buying agent, maybe say like, are there 3 clients that you can recommend that I can call? Or are there like, do you have a review page? Like, is there something that I can look at to just, verify some of the credentials, or just verify that, you have been doing a good job with people? Normally buyers and sellers reach out because of the people in the area and because they've already done some of that research. But there's a lot of vetting that you can do when it comes to real estate agents, and a present social media page or a present Google page or a Facebook page is usually helpful too, just because like a lot of those pages will bring in reviews. So if you can sit down and if you can look at the Google reviews or the Facebook reviews or even the Zillow reviews just to see how the realtor has done, like those are reviews that usually come from buyers and sellers anyway. We send them links when we close and we say, hey, I would love to hear about your experience. So you're getting a very organic, true response as to just how that realtor has helped that person.
So you're super involved, in your community of realtors. You are even, you're a board member and the president-elect for the Women's Council of Realtors in Birmingham, Bloomfield. Can you tell us about what made you want to be more involved?
Yeah, so I went to a party last year. I got invited to a real estate agent party last year. And when I got there, I was like, oh, who's throwing this party? Like, I don't know, Turns out it was the Women's Council of Realtors for Birmingham, Bloomfield. So I got to know the president at the time. She ended up having coffee with me and she was like, listen, we need ambitious people. We need, women on the team. The Women's Council of Realtors was formed, I think, in the 60s because female real estate agents didn't have the same authority to go about things as men did at the time. So the council was formed. I know that's not so much the case anymore since, there's more female realtors than men these days. But the Women's Council of Realtors is still in effect. There are tons of chapters throughout the entire country. In Michigan alone, we have, any area, like any metro area that you can basically like put your finger on, like there's usually a chapter of a women's council there. So I got involved just because I am an independent real estate agent and I just wanted to have more of a collaboration with realtors in my area. So when you're an independent real estate agent and you don't have like a big brokerage that has like hundreds of realtors in it, you kind of are like, well, how do I meet other real estate agents? So that was my goal. I was like, I want to get in front of more realtors. The more realtors I get in front of, the better chance I have of getting offers accepted for my clients. I also get referrals from different chapters. Like, there's a Florida chapter, there's, a North Carolina chapter. So when those board members, those women's council board members need need to help a client who's moving from North Carolina to Michigan, they're usually going to reach out to another women's council board member. So there's also that. There's also that whole situation that plays into it too. So, and as a member of the women's council, like, you don't need to be on the board. As a member, you end up on our website. So when people are searching for realtors with credentials, you know, they can find you on the women's council website. So I joined to basically get involved. I wanted to get involved with the movement. You know, I love empowering any female I come across. So any female I can help, you know, push to speak, get in front of people, you know, showcase their efforts. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And that's essentially what the Women's Council does. So every month we have events, we host them, we invite different realtors, we have different speaking opportunities. So there's definitely a lot of incentive that comes from the board. Being on the board, you know, I get to help make decisions as to, you know, sometimes we can help with lobbying for laws, you know, if you end up kind of taking it from the chapter to the state level. So I don't know if that's what's in the future for me. I don't know if that's like too much of an undertaking for me, but that is a possibility just because I am sitting on the board that I can actually lobby for real estate agents in Michigan. So yeah, it has a pretty big political opportunity. I also love, you know, helping my clients understand that, you know, I am on the Women's Council of Realtors. So it does help them understand that, like, you know, I am in a position where I really do feel strongly about my role and what I'm doing. And I am in a position that helps them understand that I am very involved in the real estate world. So it's not just like my part-time job, or it's not just like a random thing that I'm doing. Like, this is something that I'm very much immersed in. And being on the Women's Council kind of showcases more of like just that female empowerment that I'm going for as well. I come from a world where I've always kind of been surrounded by, you know, male authorities anyway. So just doing my best to kind of get out into the world and, you know, speak loudly about who I am and what I'm capable of and like my leadership ability. And, you know, having a company now that's, I didn't mean for it to be this way, but it just ended up this way. But I do have all female realtors, and I'm doing my best to show them every single day just how strong they can be. And, you know, they show me every day how, you know, how strong I can be too. Like, I just love the energy that we have. So the Women's Council is just like another extension of what I'm doing just in the female realm of, you know, just my leadership capabilities, you know, my speaking, my communication, just, you know, anything that I'm really trying to further in the realm of like just who I am and what I'm trying to be. So it's a great group. I love, like, you know, the sisterhood that I have on the board. You know, I'm surrounded by very strong women who are also, you know, in leadership. Like, a lot of them, they're all at different brokerages, so we're all at completely different companies. But the way that we're all able to come together every single time, regardless of what company we're in, regardless of what cities we help, it's a great community. So I'm actually going to DC next week because we have 4 different events that we do for the Women's Council where we get together nationally. So we're actually getting together next week as nationally as a group of all the chapters are coming together. We're going to DC where we get to meet with NAR and just talk about, you know, just some of the different things that are happening kind of in the political world of real estate for real estate agents. So it'll be really interesting to hear from the National Association of Realtors once I'm there, because we'll actually be able to sit down with just some of the members who are part of NAR to actually talk to them about just, you know, the new settlement, just what's happening, and they're going to be in person to talk to us. So it's a really great opportunity from a real estate, from like a real estate kind of industry, just because we are independent contractors. So it's like, how do you get involved? What do you do? So yeah, it just made a lot of sense for me to join and understand just like what's happening. So, and the positive for me too, and the incentive is that I get to come back and talk to my brokerage about just, you know, what's happening in the political world of real estate. So I just feel that much closer to it. And I wouldn't have that ability if it wasn't for the Women's Council.
That's great. And so for other people who want to join the Women's Council, can they just go to their local chapter's website and join? What's that process?
Yeah, so depending on what area you're in, if you just go to womenscouncilofrealtors.com, there's chapters all over the place. So there's a Rochester chapter, there's like a Livingston County chapter, you know, there's a Grand Rapids chapter, there's a Traverse City chapter. So it's literally everywhere in the state of Michigan. If you're outside the state of Michigan, it's the same website. And if you want to join, it'll ask you to like find a network. So you just find whatever network is closest to you. The networks are chapters. So you just find whatever chapter network is closest to you, and you can join that way. If you don't want to, be a member right away and you kind of want to just dip your toes into what the Women's Council has, we always have events every single month. Every single chapter does. So all you have to do is look out for any of the events that we have coming up. You can follow us on our different Instagram pages. We all have different Facebooks. We all have different Instagrams. You can follow us there. We all post all of our events there. So you can just show up to one of the events, kind of like I did last year. You know, I went to this derby party that we were having, which we just actually had yesterday. But I went to this derby party that they were having, and I just went to mingle with other realtors. And that was when I had an opportunity to meet some of the board members, and then I ended up joining. If you want to just show up to like one of the most recent, one of the upcoming events that are happening in your area with one of the chapters that's closest to you, you can just apply to go to one of them. It's usually like a $20 or $30 fee to join. If you're a member, the events are usually free. But yeah, you can show up to one of the events, kind of dip your toes in it, see what's happening, talk to some of the board members, talk to some of the members who are there, ask them what their experience is, and maybe just what opportunities they found with the Women's Council of Realtors. And then if it's something you want to do, you can join. Fun fact, I know it's called the Women's Council of Realtors, but we do have male members. So if you are a man and you do want to join, you can. So it isn't actually, I know it's very gender based as far as the name and title of the group, but it is very gender neutral. So anyone can join and anyone can be a board member. Doesn't matter what your gender either. So yeah, it's a great group though. If you are like more of a kind of like solo independent realtor and you're looking for more of a network, more of a culture, more of a community, I highly recommend it to anyone who is really, really looking for something like that.
Oh, that's cool. And you know what? Maybe we'll link it in the show notes too, so it's just even easier for people to find. So, Yaz, you have so many things going on this year between your brokerage and being on the Women's Council, but do you have any goals for this year that you'd like to share?
I think my biggest goal this year is, I want to say it's to grow the brokerage, but it's not because I'm not actually recruiting for realtors. It's like kind of more of an exclusive thing. But I think my biggest goal this year is to just really immerse myself in this new brokerage and just make it like the best thing that I could possibly make it this year. There is no really like tangible goal that any of us are really reaching for. It's just more so making sure that the company is thriving and has everything that it's need to make sure that all the realtors feel like they're successful. So I know the most recent thing that I've been working on is finding an office for us. I've had a few showings and I do have a spot that I kind of have my eye on right now. So I may, you know, kind of make a decision on getting an office by the end of the year. But other than that, you know, just living, staying out of as much stress as possible and just keeping things, you know, just easy and, you know, just kind of going with the flow. So that's essentially what I've been working on. And it's been nice. It's been nice kind of taking, you know, just some of the pressure off of just everything that usually comes with this role and just kind of just really, you know, getting into, you know, what I have going on with the company and what the realtors are bringing to the table and just helping them with their businesses. So yeah, that's really it.
I think that's lovely, you know, because you're not pushing too hard. You're embodying what you truly were looking for when you started, you know, the home company.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's essentially what it is. You know, I was at another brokerage that I owned before this, and I think there was always just this pressure of bringing realtors in because that was our goal. You know, it was to recruit realtors and get as many realtors into the door as possible. And, you know, that takes away from some of the fun with real estate when it comes to just, you know, like I got into real estate to help buyers and sellers, and that's what I want to continue to do. I understand that I'm a real estate broker and I understand that I have a brokerage, but at the end of the day, like I want to be boots on the ground. I want to help sellers. I want to help buyers, and I love leadership. So I want to continue to help the realtors that are at my company. And I think as long as all of us are working towards that goal, like we're going to continue to have fun with it. And yeah, that's really it. It's like as simple as that. So that's just what I'm focused on right now.
That's so great. And do you have something that you're looking forward to this year, you know, in your personal life?
I have some fun vacations coming up. So I'm always excited about traveling. And Cookie Monster is going to be traveling international this year. So I'm really pumped about that. He travels domestically all the time, but we are going to be traveling internationally. So I'm pretty pumped about getting him outside of the country, getting another stamp on his or getting his first stamp on his passport, I guess.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I'm pretty pumped about that. So yeah, traveling has always been like a hobby. I think that's like my biggest hobby is like just getting out and doing anything that I can. And I think with the start of the new brokerage, I've kind of put a pause on all of that. So now that the brokerage is up, it's running, we've got realtors there, everybody's thriving, things are happening now. Now I can finally, focus on my personal business as well as just what the realtors are doing, and then also start to really plan out just some of those trips. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. You'll have to take some restaurant videos while you're there,
Well,
so we
yeah,
can all live vicariously.
definitely.
Awesome. Well,
Definitely.
Yaz, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Would you like to direct people how they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram username is at Yaz underscore realtor. I also have a website with all my social media links. It's yazrealtor.com. If you're interested in learning about the brokerage that we have, it's thehomecogroup.com. You can see all of our realtors on there if you're interested in buying and selling with any of them. We have an amazing group, an awesome group. Yeah, that's essentially where we are. So you can find us there.
Awesome. And we will link it all so everybody can find it in the show notes below. Thank you again, Yaz, and thank you all for watching. This has been The Closing Table brought to you by Windowstill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler. If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure you are following us on Apple and Spotify. And if you're part of our YouTube audience, hit that subscribe button. If you do subscribe, put in the comments, I've subscribed, and I will personally reply to every single one of them. Thank you guys so much. We will talk to you next time.